What if everything we thought we knew about ancient technology was wrong? Picture a world where the distant past holds machines so advanced, so precise, they shouldn't exist, not by the timelines we've been taught. These aren't just relics of forgotten craftsmanship, they're puzzles that defy logic, artifacts that seem to whisper secrets of a history far more complex than we ever imagined. Welcome to the enigma of out-of-place artifacts, objects so inexplicably advanced for their time, they force us to question the very foundations of human innovation. From gears crafted with impossible precision to devices that mirror modern engineering, these ancient machines don't just blur the line between past and present, they shatter it. How could a 2,000-year-old mechanism predict celestial events with staggering accuracy? Why does a relic from antiquity resemble components found in today's factories? These aren't just curiosities, they're clues scattered across centuries, hinting at knowledge lost to time. And today, we're uncovering 25 of the most jaw-dropping examples, each one a testament to ingenuity that shouldn't exist, yet undeniably does. This journey isn't just about marveling at the past, it's about rewriting it. Every artifact we explore challenges the narratives we've grown up with, inviting us to see history not as a straight line but as a web of possibilities. Some of these machines were dismissed as hoaxes, others buried by skepticism until now. Together, we'll peel back the layers of mystery, examining the evidence, the controversies, and the startling truths behind these technological anomalies. By the end, you won't just see these artifacts as oddities, you'll see them as proof that the past holds far more surprises than we ever dared to imagine. Ready to step into the unknown, let's begin. The first stop on our journey takes us to the shores of a tiny Greek island, where divers in the early 20th century stumbled upon a corroded lump of bronze that would rewrite history. What they pulled from that shipwreck wasn't just another artifact, it was a machine, a labyrinth of interlocking gears so precise, so sophisticated, it had no business existing in the ancient world. The Antikythera Mechanism, as it came to be known, wasn't just ahead of its time, it was centuries ahead. Imagine a device no larger than a shoebox, its insides whirring with delicate bronze gears, each tooth meticulously calculated to track the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. This wasn't mere guesswork, it was a mechanical representation of the cosmos, capable of predicting lunar eclipses and planetary alignments with startling accuracy. The kicker, it dates back to around 100 years before the Common Era, a time when, according to conventional history, such technology shouldn't have been possible. The mystery deepens when you consider the craftsmanship. X-rays and advanced imaging have revealed gears with teeth cut at exact angles, mechanisms that wouldn't be seen again until the rise of European clockmakers in the 14th century. How did ancient Greeks, without the precision tools we take for granted, achieve such engineering mastery? Some theorists suggest it might be the work of a lone genius, perhaps inspired by lost knowledge from even earlier civilizations. Others argue it's evidence of a forgotten technological golden age wiped clean by time. Then there's the question of its purpose. Was it a navigational tool for sailors? A teaching device for philosophers, or something even more profound, a sacred object, meant to bridge the gap between human understanding and the divine order of the heavens? The truth is, we may never know for certain, but one thing's undeniable: the Antikythera Mechanism forces us to confront the uncomfortable idea that our ancestors might have known far more and been far more capable than we've ever given them credit for. It's not just an artifact, it's a challenge daring us to rethink what's possible in the ancient world. From the intricate gears of the Antikythera Mechanism, we journey now to the sands of ancient Mesopotamia, where a set of unassuming clay jars might hold the key to another technological shock. Discovered in the ruins near Baghdad in the 1930s, these peculiar artifacts, dubbed the Baghdad Batteries, look like nothing more than simple storage vessels at first glance. But crack one open and you'll find a design so curiously deliberate, it sparks a tantalizing question. Did the ancients harness electricity centuries before its so-called discovery? Each jar, dating back nearly 2,000 years, contains a copper cylinder housing an iron rod, sealed with an asphalt plug. Fill it with an acidic liquid like vinegar or grape juice, and something remarkable happens. The setup generates a faint electrical charge. Replicas have produced around 1 volt of electricity, enough to power small demonstrations. That might not sound like much today, but in a world where lightning was still seen as the wrath of gods, even a flicker of controlled electricity would have been revolutionary. The big debate, what these jars were actually for. Some researchers argue they were used for electroplating, coating objects in thin layers of gold or silver using electrical currents. Ancient Mesopotamian artifacts do show signs of gilding far too precise for traditional methods. Skeptics counter that no wires or conductive trails have ever been found nearby, suggesting they might have just been sacred scroll cases. Yet the design is suspiciously efficient for a battery, down to the asphalt insulating the iron from the copper to prevent short-circuiting. Could this be proof of lost electrical knowledge? Or just a case of modern minds projecting our understanding onto the past? Either way, the Baghdad batteries remind us that history rarely fits into neat categories. Sometimes the most ordinary-looking objects hide the most extraordinary secrets waiting for us to plug in the right questions. Buried in the sands of Egypt for over 2,000 years, a delicate wooden artifact emerged that would ignite fierce debate among archaeologists and engineers alike. The Saqqara Bird, discovered in 1898 near the Step Pyramid of Djoser, looks deceptively simple at first glance, a slender, 7-inch figure with wings swept back in a graceful curve. But tilt it just right, and you might notice something startling. Its silhouette bears an uncanny resemblance to a modern aircraft. The proportions are eerily aerodynamic, the wings angled in a way that mirrors the gliders we know today. Could this be proof that ancient Egyptians understood principles of flight long before Leonardo da Vinci sketched his famous ornithopter? Aeronautical engineers who have studied replicas point to the bird's streamlined shape, noting how the wings generate lift when tested in wind tunnels. Some even argue the design includes a subtle feature, a tiny notch near the tail that acts like a rudder, stabilizing the object midair. If true, this wouldn't just be a ceremonial piece, it would be a blueprint, a testament to lost knowledge of aerodynamics. Skeptics, however, urge caution. They highlight that the artifact lacks critical components like propellers or ailerons, and its lightweight cedar construction suggests it might have been a ceremonial hawk, a symbol of the god Horus, or even a child's toy. After all, ancient cultures crafted countless bird figures. Why assume this one was special? Yet even among doubters, there's unease. The precision of the wings, angled 12 degrees, optimal for gliding, feels too deliberate for coincidence. The mystery thickens when you consider ancient Egyptian texts mentioning sky boats and rituals involving flight. Were these metaphors or echoes of hands-on experience? Without clearer evidence, the Saqqara Bird remains suspended between two worlds, a relic that could rewrite history or a beautifully crafted enigma, taunting us with possibilities just out of reach. Either way, it forces us to wonder what else might we have missed, buried beneath millennia of sand and assumptions. Standing tall in the heart of India for over 1,600 years, the Iron Pillar of Delhi is more than just an ancient monument, it's a metallurgical miracle. At 23 feet high and weighing over 6 tons, this towering relic from around 400 years of the Common Era should be a crumbling mass of rust, its iron eaten away by centuries of monsoons, humidity, and pollution. And yet it isn't. The pillar remains pristine, its surface smooth and uncorroded, defying the laws of chemistry in a way that still leaves modern scientists scratching their heads. What makes this feat even more astonishing is the composition of the iron itself. Modern metallurgists who have analyzed the pillar found it contains an unusually high amount of phosphorus, up to 1%, combined with remarkably low levels of sulfur and manganese. This unique alloy forms a thin, invisible protective layer on the surface, a passive film that shields the iron from oxidation. It's a process so advanced it wouldn't be replicated in the West until the 19th century. How did ancient Indian blacksmiths, working without modern laboratories or precision instruments, unlock this secret? Some theories suggest the answer lies in traditional forging techniques passed down through generations. Craftsmen may have used a specific method of hammering and heating the iron, creating microstructures within the metal that enhance its resistance. Others point to the pillar's original purpose. It was likely erected as a tribute to the Hindu god Vishnu, and the care taken in its construction might have included ritualistic processes that inadvertently perfected its durability. But the mystery doesn't end there. If this knowledge existed, why wasn't it widely used? Why don't we find other rust-free iron artifacts from the same period? The pillar stands alone, a silent witness to a technological peak that either wasn't shared or was somehow lost to time. Even today, attempts to replicate its corrosion resistance on a large scale have fallen short, proving that ancient metallurgists achieved something modern science still struggles to explain fully. More than just a curiosity, the iron pillar forces us to reconsider the capabilities of ancient craftsmen. It's not just a relic. It's a challenge, daring us to uncover the forgotten techniques that could revolutionize our own understanding of materials science. And as it continues to stand unchanging through the centuries, it whispers a tantalizing question. What other secrets might still be hidden in the artifacts of the past, waiting for us to decode them? Deep in the shadows of Egypt's Dendera temple, a series of enigmatic carvings have sparked a debate that blurs the line between ancient myth and cutting-edge technology. The so-called Dendera lights, etched into the temple's walls over 2,000 years ago, show elongated, bulb-like objects with snaking filaments inside, held aloft by towering figures. To some, these aren't just symbolic artwork, they're proof that the pharaohs harnessed electricity, illuminating their tombs and temples with artificial light long before Edison's invention. At the heart of the controversy is the striking resemblance between these carvings and modern light bulbs. The objects feature what appear to be filaments reminiscent of tungsten wires, encased in glass chambers that taper at the base almost exactly like the bulbs we use today. Proponents of the ancient electricity theory point to the absence of soot in certain underground chambers where torches or oil lamps would have left marks. How, they ask, could artisans paint intricate murals or carve hieroglyphs in pitch-black corridors without a steady, smokeless light source? But mainstream Egyptologists offer a very different interpretation. These carvings, they argue, depict the Djed pillar, a symbol of stability cradling a blossoming lotus flower, a representation of creation myths tied to the god Osiris. The filament might actually be a serpent, an emblem of divine energy in Egyptian iconography, and the figures holding the objects, they're not ancient engineers but deities, part of rituals celebrating cosmic cycles, not technological breakthroughs. The debate grows even more intriguing when you examine the Baghdad batteries alongside these carvings. Could there be a lost thread connecting these artifacts? Or is this just a case of seeing what we want to see in the distant past? The truth may lie somewhere in between, a reminder that ancient civilizations often encoded their understanding of natural forces in symbols we're still deciphering. Whether the Dendera carvings show light bulbs or sacred symbols, they challenge us to question not just what the ancients knew, but how they chose to preserve that knowledge for future generations. Tucked away in the ruins of an Assyrian palace in modern-day Iraq, a small piece of rock crystal has ignited one of archaeology's most intriguing debates. Known as the Nimrud Lens, this 3,000-year-old artifact is no larger than the palm of your hand, yet its implications loom large. Discovered in 1850 during excavations of Nimrud, once a thriving capital of the Assyrian Empire. The lens is ground into a slightly oval shape with one flat side and another gently curved. At first glance, it could pass for a decorative stone, but hold it up to the light and something remarkable happens. It bends and focuses sunlight, magnifying objects with surprising clarity. So what exactly was its purpose? Some researchers argue this couldn't be a coincidence. The curvature is too precise, too deliberate. They propose it might have been part of an early telescope used by Assyrian astronomers to chart the heavens long before Galileo. Others suggest it could have served as a magnifying tool for artisans, enabling intricate work on seals or jewelry. There's even a tantalizing theory linking it to the legendary burning mirrors described in ancient texts, devices said to concentrate sunlight into a weapon of war. After all, the Assyrians were master engineers, builders of sprawling cities and sophisticated siege engines. Why not optics too? Yet skeptics counter that the lens's imperfections, its asymmetrical shape, slight cloudiness point to something more mundane. An ornamental inlay, perhaps a piece of jewelry or furniture decoration, with optical properties that were purely accidental. After all, polished crystal was a status symbol among the elite, prized for its beauty rather than its utility. And if the Assyrians truly understood optics, where are the other lenses? Where's the evidence of a broader tradition? The Nimrud Lens sits at the crossroads of these arguments, a puzzle with no definitive answer. What makes it so compelling isn't just the question of its function, but what it reveals about how we interpret the past. One person's magnifying glass is another's decorative bead, and that ambiguity forces us to confront the limits of our own assumptions. Without written records to confirm its use, the lens becomes a mirror of sorts, reflecting back our own curiosity, our hunger to find traces of advanced knowledge in the ancient world. Whether it's proof of early optics or simply a beautiful accident, it reminds us that history's most fascinating artifacts are often the ones that resist easy explanation. Buried beneath the ashes of a Minoan palace for over 3,000 years, the Phaistos disc is one of archaeology's most mesmerizing riddles. Discovered in 1908 at the ancient site of Phaistos on Crete, this palm-sized clay disc is covered on both sides with a spiral of 45 distinct symbols, everything from human figures and animals to abstract shapes resembling tools or plants. At first glance, it resembles an early form of writing, but here's the catch: no one has ever cracked its code. Not linguists, not cryptographers, not even artificial intelligence. The disc exists in a league of its own, a linguistic isolate with no known connection to any other script from the ancient world. What makes the disc even more baffling is how these symbols were made. Unlike hand-carved inscriptions, the markings were pressed into wet clay using individual stamps, one for each symbol. This technique suggests the Minoans might have pioneered a form of movable type printing over 3 millennia before Gutenberg. If true, it rewrites the history of mass communication, hinting at a society capable of replicating texts with startling efficiency. But why haven't we found more examples? Was this a one-off experiment or evidence of a broader tradition lost to time? Theories about the disc's purpose range from the practical to the mystical. Some scholars propose it's a religious hymn or a calendar, its spiral mimicking celestial cycles. Others argue it could be a political decree or even a board game's rulebook. More speculative ideas link it to ancient rituals, suggesting the symbols encode secret knowledge meant only for initiates. There's even a fringe theory that the disc isn't writing at all, but a tactile teaching tool for the blind, a Bronze Age braille. Despite countless attempts, the script refuses to yield its secrets. Early efforts assumed it represented a form of Linear A, the undeciphered script of the Minoans, but the symbols don't match. Computer algorithms analyzing pattern frequencies have only deepened the mystery, unable to classify it as either a language or a non-linguistic system. The disc's isolation is what haunts researchers. No duplicates, no related artifacts, just this lone object whispering in a language we may never understand. Perhaps the most tantalizing clue lies in its craftsmanship. The precision of the stamped symbols implies a level of standardization unheard of in the second millennium before the Common Era. Who created these stamps? Were they reused? And if so, what happened to the other texts they produced? The silence is deafening. Each failed decipherment only amplifies the disc's enigma, reminding us that some ancient machines don't just challenge our timelines, they defy comprehension itself. Whether it's a forgotten scripture, an ancient prototype, or something far stranger, the Phaistos disc stands as a monument to humanity's unquenchable curiosity. It's not just a relic, it's a mirror reflecting our own limitations back at us. After a century of scrutiny, the disc remains stubbornly silent, a puzzle that may forever hover just beyond our grasp. And in that silence, it asks a haunting question: how many other breakthroughs from the ancient world have we simply failed to recognize? In the arid landscapes of California's Coso Mountains, a discovery in 1961 would spark one of the most heated debates in the world of anomalous artifacts. A pair of rockhounds cracking open what they thought was an ordinary geode found something impossible nestled inside, a mechanical object resembling a modern spark plug, encased in stone they claimed was 500,000 years old. The Coso artifact, as it came to be known, seemed like the ultimate smoking gun for ancient advanced technology. How could a component straight out of a 20th century engine be sealed within mineral deposits older than humanity itself? The artifact's design only deepened the mystery. X-rays revealed a metal core surrounded by a ceramic insulator with a hexagonal base eerily similar to a champion spark plug from the 1920s. Proponents of the out-of-place artifact theory seized on it as evidence of lost civilizations or even extraterrestrial intervention. If this object was genuinely ancient, it would rewrite everything we thought we knew about technological progress. The implications were staggering: a piece of industrial engineering buried in a time before Homo sapiens even walked the earth, but science eventually had its say. Detailed analysis of the encasing mineral layers told a different story. The so-called geode wasn't a natural formation at all. It was a hardened lump of clay and debris, likely accumulated around the object in mere decades, not millennia. The spark plug itself was just that, a mundane automotive part from the early 20th century, perhaps discarded by a miner or mechanic and later encrusted by mineral deposits. The 500,000-year claim crumbled under scrutiny, yet the Coso artifact's legacy endures as a cautionary tale. It exemplifies how easily genuine curiosity can tip into wishful thinking, especially when faced with the allure of rewriting history. The human mind craves patterns, and when confronted with the unfamiliar, it often jumps to extraordinary conclusions. This isn't to dismiss all anomalous finds. Many, like the Antikythera Mechanism, withstand rigorous examination, but to highlight the importance of skepticism. The line between breakthrough and blunder is often thinner than we'd like to admit. What makes the Coso story particularly instructive is how it mirrors broader trends in archaeology. For every legitimate mystery, there's a misidentified tool, a natural formation mistaken for a relic, or worse, a deliberate hoax. These cases don't just muddy the waters, they cast doubt on legitimate discoveries, making it harder for serious researchers to be heard. The artifact's rise and fall remind us that extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence, and that sometimes the most thrilling answers are the simplest ones. But here's the twist: even debunked artifacts like the Coso spark plug serve a purpose. They force us to refine our methods, to question not just the objects we find but the stories we attach to them. In a way, the artifact's true value lies not in what it was, but in what it reveals about our relationship with the past. The desire to uncover lost knowledge is powerful, but so is the discipline to accept when the past refuses to conform to our fantasies. After all, history's real secrets are compelling enough without inventing new ones. High above the temple walls of Abydos, nestled among the sacred hieroglyphs of Pharaoh Seti I, hides a carving that seems to defy the boundaries of time itself. At first glance, these hieroglyphs appear to depict something impossible: a helicopter, complete with a rotor blade and tail fin, alongside what looks like a submarine and even a futuristic aircraft. The precision is uncanny, the resemblance undeniable. How could symbols carved over 3,000 years ago mirror 20th century technology with such eerie accuracy? Mainstream Egyptologists have a straightforward explanation. These carvings are palimpsests, a phenomenon where older inscriptions were plastered over and recarved by later artisans. Over centuries, chunks of the plaster have eroded away, leaving behind a jumble of overlapping hieroglyphs. The helicopter, in this view, isn't a single image at all. It's the accidental merging of multiple symbols, like a visual echo of history layered upon itself. The original carvings likely spelled out royal titles or religious epithets, their meanings scrambled by time and weather into something that tricks the modern eye. But fringe researchers aren't so quick to dismiss the mystery. They point to the specificity of the shapes, the rotor's angle, the submarine's hull, arguing that such precise overlaps are statistically improbable. Could this be evidence of ancient Egyptians foreseeing future technology, perhaps through lost wisdom or even contact with advanced civilizations? Some go further, suggesting the carvings are proof of time travel, a deliberate message left by visitors from another era. The debate often hinges on perspective. To a linguist, the helicopter is a textbook case of pareidolia, our brain's tendency to find familiar patterns in random noise. To a conspiracy theorist, it's a smoking gun, proof that history's timeline is far more fluid than we've been taught. Yet there's a third possibility, one that bridges both worlds. What if the carvings are neither mistake nor prophecy, but a testament to human imagination? Ancient cultures dreamed of flight just as we do, crafting myths of sky chariots and winged gods. Maybe the Abydos carvings are a reminder that the line between prophecy and coincidence is thinner than we think. Whether accident, hoax, or something more profound, the Abydos helicopter forces us to confront how easily the past can be misread, and how willingly we project our own world onto the canvas of history. It's a Rorschach test in stone, revealing as much about our modern obsessions as it does about the ancients. And that, perhaps, is the real mystery here, not what the carvings show, but why we're so desperate for them to be real. Buried in the fertile soil of former Roman territories, from England to Hungary, lie some of antiquity's most perplexing puzzles: bronze dodecahedrons, their purpose lost to time. These 12-sided objects, each face pierced with circular holes of varying sizes, have baffled archaeologists since the first was unearthed in 1739. Ranging from golf ball to baseball size, they share an uncanny precision. Every angle identically crafted, every edge meticulously smoothed, suggesting these weren't mere decorative trinkets but tools with a deliberate, perhaps even vital function. Yet despite hundreds discovered, not a single surviving text or inscription mentions them. It's as if Rome's engineers collectively decided to take this one secret to their graves. One of the most compelling theories casts these objects as astronomical instruments. The varying hole sizes could correlate to celestial observations, allowing users to measure angles of sunlight or track solstices. Imagine a farmer holding a dodecahedron aloft, its holes filtering light to predict planting seasons. Some replicas tested this way do align with seasonal markers, yet critics point out the holes' irregular patterns. Why wouldn't they be uniformly placed for accuracy? Others propose they were surveying tools, the geometric perfection aiding in land measurement. But then why are they found in such diverse locations, from military outposts to rural villas, with no clear link to professions requiring such precision? Then there's the knitting hypothesis. In 2014, a craft historian demonstrated how a replica could guide the creation of complex gloves, the holes acting as gauges for consistent stitching. It's a charming idea, Roman soldiers knitting mittens during long winters, but textile experts counter that no fibers or wear patterns supporting this use have ever been found. The objects show no signs of the abrasion you'd expect from yarn rubbing against metal over time. Perhaps the most haunting theory ties them to religion or divination. The dodecahedron's 12 faces mirror the zodiac, and its hollow interior could have held precious substances used in rituals. One excavated in Switzerland was found with a small bronze coin inside, hinting at ceremonial deposits. Yet without contextual clues, no temple caches, no depictions in religious art, this remains speculative. The silence surrounding these objects is what makes them so tantalizing. They're too widespread to be experimental one-offs, too uniform to be random art. Each new discovery deepens the mystery rather than solves it. Whether practical tools or sacred objects, the Roman dodecahedrons stand as a humbling reminder. Even a civilization as meticulously documented as Rome still holds secrets, whispering to us across millennia in a language we've yet to decode. Imagine a world where earthquakes weren't just feared but predicted, where an instrument crafted nearly 2,000 years ago could sense tremors from hundreds of miles away, long before the ground began to shake. That world existed in 2nd century China, thanks to the genius of Zhang Heng, a polymath whose seismoscope remains one of antiquity's most astonishing feats of engineering. This bronze masterpiece, shaped like an ornate vase adorned with 8 dragon heads, wasn't just decorative, it was a functional earthquake detector, a device so advanced it wouldn't be matched until the 19th century. At the heart of its design lay a simple yet revolutionary principle. Each dragon held a bronze ball in its mouth, poised above a corresponding toad figurine with an upturned mouth. Inside the vessel, a suspended pendulum remained still under normal conditions, but when seismic waves rippled through the earth, even faint tremors from distant quakes would disturb the pendulum's balance. The movement triggered a mechanism that released a single ball from one of the dragons, clattering into the mouth of the toad below. The direction of the fallen ball pointed toward the epicenter, giving officials critical information about where disaster had struck. A system so precise, historical records claim it once detected an earthquake over 400 miles away that hadn't yet been felt locally. What's truly remarkable is how Zhang Heng's device anticipated modern seismology. Today's instruments measure ground motion with pendulums and sensors, but the ancient seismoscope achieved similar results without electricity or complex materials. Researchers who have reconstructed it using period-appropriate techniques found it could detect quakes as low as magnitude 4, a sensitivity that would have been invaluable for an empire reliant on timely disaster response. The ingenuity didn't stop there. The 8 dragons aligned with cardinal and intercardinal directions, creating a crude but effective coordinate system. This wasn't guesswork, it was calibrated science, a testament to Han Dynasty China's understanding of physics and geography. Yet for all its brilliance, the seismoscope's inner workings remain partially shrouded in mystery. The original was lost to time, and scholars still debate the exact mechanism linking the pendulum to the dragons. Some theories suggest hidden levers or channels of mercury, while others propose a system of interconnected gears. What's undeniable, though, is the device's legacy. While Western science dismissed earthquakes as divine wrath for centuries, Zhang Heng approached them as measurable phenomena, an empirical mindset centuries ahead of its time. The seismoscope story isn't just about ancient innovation. It's about how knowledge can vanish and resurface across eras. Similar pendulum-based detectors didn't reappear in Europe until the 1700s, a gap of over 1,500 years. That raises a haunting question. How many other breakthroughs like this were forgotten, their secrets buried with their creators? Zhang Heng's invention stands as a reminder that progress isn't always linear. Sometimes the past holds flashes of genius that flicker out, only to be rediscovered millennia later. And in that gap between ancient mastery and modern rediscovery lies one of history's most tantalizing mysteries. What else might we have known, then forgotten, waiting to be unearthed again? For centuries, the seas around Byzantium trembled at the mere whisper of its name, a weapon so devastating it could turn water into an inferno. Greek fire, the Byzantine Empire's closely guarded secret, wasn't just another tool of war. It was a technological marvel that defied the physics of its time. Picture the terror of enemy sailors as streams of liquid flame roared from bronze siphons, clinging to ships and skin alike, burning even as waves crashed over it. This wasn't ordinary fire. It was a weaponized alchemy, a napalm-like substance that could ignite wood, metal, and even the sea itself, leaving no escape for those caught in its path. The brilliance of Greek fire lay in its mysterious composition. Historical accounts describe it as a thick, sticky liquid, launched from tubes mounted on Byzantine ships or sprayed through handheld flamethrowers known as cherasiphons. Once ignited, it couldn't be extinguished with water. In fact, water only intensified the flames. Some texts suggest it contained quicklime, which reacts violently with moisture, or naphtha, a volatile petroleum byproduct. Others speculate about secret additives like sulfur or resin to enhance adhesion. Yet the full recipe, known only to a select few, was so fiercely protected that its exact formula vanished with the fall of Constantinople in the 15th century. Even today, modern chemists and historians can only guess at the precise blend, making it one of history's most enduring technological enigmas. But Greek fire wasn't just a chemical curiosity, it reshaped the art of naval warfare. Before its invention in the 7th century, sea battles relied on ramming and boarding tactics. The introduction of this incendiary weapon turned Byzantine ships into floating fortresses, capable of decimating enemy fleets from a distance. The psychological impact was just as potent as the physical damage. Opponents, often superstitious medieval sailors, saw the unquenchable flames as supernatural, a sign of divine favor bestowed upon the Byzantines. This fear became a strategic weapon in itself, deterring invasions and securing the empire's dominance over the Mediterranean for centuries. The secrecy surrounding Greek fire raises a tantalizing question. Why was this knowledge lost so completely? Some historians argue the Byzantines' obsessive compartmentalization. Only the ruling Komnenos family and a handful of trusted chemists knew the formula, made the technology vulnerable to extinction. Others suggest the ingredients became scarce over time, or that later generations simply failed to document the process adequately. There's even a theory that the formula wasn't lost at all, but deliberately destroyed to prevent it from falling into the hands of Crusaders or Ottomans. Whatever the truth, its disappearance stands as a cautionary tale about the fragility of human innovation. Reconstructions and experiments have offered glimpses into how Greek fire might have worked. Modern attempts using naphtha and pine resin create a convincing imitation, clinging to surfaces and resisting water. Yet without the original instructions, we'll never know if these replicas capture the true fury of the Byzantine arsenal. What's undeniable is the legacy it left behind, a weapon so advanced it feels ripped from the pages of science fiction. Greek fire wasn't just a tool of conquest, it was a symbol of how far ancient science could stretch when driven by necessity and ingenuity. And in its eerie absence, it challenges us to wonder what other breakthroughs from the past have slipped through the cracks of history, leaving only echoes of their brilliance behind. Locked away in Yale University's Beinecke Library sits a book that has defied comprehension for over 6 centuries, the Voynich manuscript. Named after the rare book dealer who rediscovered it in 1912, this 240-page medieval codex is written in an indecipherable script, accompanied by illustrations so bizarre they seem plucked from a fever dream. But among its strange botanical drawings and celestial charts lie the most perplexing images of all. Intricate, otherworldly diagrams that some researchers insist depict advanced machines, possibly even hydroponic systems or energy devices far ahead of their time. Turn to one particularly cryptic section, and you'll find a series of interconnected tubes and vessels resembling an elaborate plumbing network. Fluid appears to flow through transparent pipes, connecting bulbous containers that could be mistaken for modern bioreactors. To the untrained eye, it looks like a blueprint for a scientific apparatus, one that wouldn't be out of place in a 21st century lab. How could a 15th century illustrator conceive of such designs? Some theorists argue these aren't fantastical doodles but representations of real technology, perhaps borrowed from a lost civilization or even inspired by extraterrestrial contact. The precision of the schematics, with their careful symmetry and recurring mechanical motifs, fuels speculation that the manuscript's author had witnessed or imagined engineering far beyond the era's known capabilities. Yet mainstream scholars urge caution. The manuscript's machines might be allegorical, symbolic representations of alchemical processes rather than literal devices. Medieval texts often used visual metaphors to depict spiritual purification or the transformation of matter, with fluids symbolizing primal energies. The Rosicrucian tradition, for instance, abounds with similar imagery where water and vessels represent stages of enlightenment. Others propose the illustrations are purely fantastical, the product of an inventive mind unbound by the constraints of physical reality. After all, the same pages feature plants that don't exist and naked women bathing in emerald green fluids, hardly the hallmarks of a technical manual. The mystery only deepens when you consider the manuscript's language. Statistical analyses reveal patterns consistent with a genuine cipher or unknown tongue, yet every attempted decryption, from wartime codebreakers to artificial intelligence, has failed. The text's resistance to interpretation suggests either an unbelievably complex cipher or a deliberate hoax, though the latter seems unlikely given the manuscript's age and the sheer effort invested in its creation. Carbon dating places its vellum between 1404 and 1438, and the inks match period appropriate recipes, ruling out modern forgery. Perhaps the most compelling clue lies in the manuscript's possible connection to Renaissance polymaths like John Dee or Roger Bacon, both rumored to have dabbled in esoteric knowledge. Could the Voynich be an encrypted repository of forbidden science, its machines the remnants of suppressed inventions? Or is it something even stranger, a medieval artist's attempt to visualize technologies described in travelers' tales like Marco Polo's accounts of Eastern marvels? Without the key to its language, we may never know. What makes the Voynich manuscript's mechanical illustrations so haunting isn't just their strangeness, it's their eerie resonance with later inventions. The tubing systems predate 19th century hydroponics by 400 years. The swirling, reactor-like chambers evoke particle accelerators. Whether prophecy, fantasy, or encrypted reality, these drawings challenge our assumptions about the boundaries of medieval knowledge. They stand as a silent provocation, daring us to consider that the past might hold more surprises than we've ever dared to imagine. And until someone cracks its code, the Voynich will remain history's most tantalizing what if, a book that whispers of secrets just beyond our grasp. Hidden deep in the jungles of Colombia, a collection of tiny gold figurines has sparked a debate that blurs the line between ancient art and advanced engineering. The Quimbaya artifacts, crafted by a pre-Columbian civilization over 1,000 years ago, resemble something utterly out of place modern aircraft, with their delta wing shapes, vertical stabilizers, and even what appear to be cockpit canopies. These golden objects look less like ritual offerings and more like miniature jets frozen in mid-flight. To some, they're smoking gun, evidence of lost aviation knowledge. To others, they're a classic case of seeing what we want to see in the artifacts of the past. Aeronautical engineers who have examined the figurines point to features that seem suspiciously aerodynamic. The wings are angled backward, a design known as sweepback in modern aviation, which reduces drag at high speeds. The fuselage is streamlined with a distinct separation between the nose and the main body, much like the intake of a jet engine. Even the tail fins are positioned exactly where you'd expect them on a supersonic plane. When scaled-up replicas were tested in wind tunnels, some exhibited lift and stability characteristics comparable to modern aircraft designs. How could a culture with no known exposure to flight conceive of shapes that align so perfectly with principles we've only mastered in the last century? But archaeologists counter with a far more grounded explanation. The figurines, they argue, are stylized depictions of local fauna, birds, fish, or even insects like dragonflies, whose forms share similarities with aircraft purely by coincidence. Many pre-Columbian cultures crafted zoomorphic art with exaggerated features for symbolic or ceremonial purposes. The wings might be fins or feathers, the cockpit an abstract representation of an animal's head. Without written records from the Quimbaya people, we're left interpreting shapes through a modern lens, projecting our own technological obsessions onto objects meant to honor nature, not machinery. The debate takes an even stranger turn when you consider the context. These artifacts were found alongside other goldwork depicting unmistakable animals, jaguars, frogs, bats, all rendered with the same stylized flair. If the airplanes are meant to be jets, why don't we see other anachronistic technology? And why would a civilization capable of understanding aerodynamics limit their knowledge to tiny, non-functional models? Skeptics argue it's a textbook example of pareidolia, our brain's tendency to find familiar patterns in ambiguous stimuli. Yet the aerodynamic anomalies are hard to dismiss entirely. Even if the figurines are meant to represent living creatures, their designs incorporate features that wouldn't be functionally necessary for a bird or insect. The vertical tail fins, for instance, serve no obvious purpose in nature but are critical for stabilizing man-made aircraft. Could the Quimbaya have observed some natural phenomenon, a gliding seed pod perhaps, and refined its shape intuitively into something that, by sheer accident, mirrors our own engineering? Or is there a more unsettling possibility that these gold relics are echoes of a forgotten experiment, a fleeting grasp at flight that history has since erased? What makes the Quimbaya artifacts so compelling isn't just the question of what they depict, it's what they reveal about how we reconstruct the past. Every interpretation is a Rorschach test, reflecting our own assumptions and biases. To the engineer, they're proof of ancient genius. To the archaeologist, they're beautiful examples of cultural expression. The truth may lie somewhere in between, a reminder that the line between inspiration and coincidence is often thinner than we think. And in that ambiguity, the Quimbaya airplanes soar not as artifacts with a single answer, but as timeless enigmas, inviting us to wonder just how much of the past remains hidden in plain sight. Scattered across the rainforests and riverbeds of Costa Rica, hundreds of stone spheres lie hidden beneath centuries of tangled vines and shifting earth, each one a marvel of precision that defies the technological limits of the past. Known as the Diquis spheres, these megalithic artifacts range from the size of a bowling ball to massive orbs over 8 feet in diameter, some weighing as much as 16 tons. Their surfaces are unnervingly smooth, their shapes so perfectly spherical that modern engineers using laser measurements have found deviations of less than 2 millimeters. For a civilization lacking metal tools or even the wheel to haul these behemoths, achieving such geometric perfection seems almost supernatural. What makes these spheres truly baffling is the raw material they're carved from, gabbro, a coarse volcanic rock so hard it would have shattered lesser tools on contact. Archaeologists theorize the builders painstakingly shaped the spheres using smaller stones as hammers, grinding and polishing them over generations. The process would have required not just skill, but an almost obsessive dedication to symmetry, a cultural imperative so strong it compelled artisans to spend lifetimes perfecting single stones. Some spheres show evidence of heating, suggesting fire may have been used to fracture the rock before finer shaping. Yet even with these methods, the precision remains staggering. How did they maintain consistency across hundreds of spheres without standardized measuring devices? Were they guided by some lost system of mathematics or celestial alignment? Theories about their purpose are as varied as the spheres themselves. Local legends claim they're remnants of a lost city's treasure or the petrified testicles of gods. More pragmatic explanations suggest they were territorial markers for elite families, their size and quantity reflecting social status. But the most tantalizing hypothesis casts them as components of a vast astronomical machine. Certain spheres cluster in alignments that mirror star patterns, while others sit atop ancient mounds, positioned to track solstices or equinoxes. Imagine them as stone compasses, their shadows or reflections used to map the heavens or predict seasonal floods. Then there's the industrial angle. The sphere's near-flawless roundness has led some researchers to propose they functioned as colossal ball bearings, perhaps aiding in the transport of even heavier megaliths. Rolling one of these giants atop a track of fitted spheres could explain how pre-Columbian cultures moved massive stones without draft animals. Yet this raises another puzzle. Many spheres were found atop hills or in remote areas, far from any known construction sites. If they were tools, why abandon them in places with no apparent use? The mystery deepens when you consider the sphere's distribution. Most were uprooted from their original context by 20th century plantations, leaving archaeologists to piece together their placements like a scattered jigsaw. A few intact clusters hint at deliberate geometric arrangements, triangles, lines, even parabolic curves, but without their original configurations, decoding their function becomes speculative. Adding to the enigma, nearly all the spheres were sculpted between 300 and 1500 years of the Common Era, yet the society that created them left no written records, only silent stones. Perhaps the most haunting question isn't how or why, but why stop? The Diquis culture vanished centuries before Spanish contact, and with them, the knowledge of these spheres' true purpose. Were they sacred objects, their crafting a form of devotion, practical tools repurposed by time into ritual items, or something else entirely, a language in stone we've yet to decipher? Unlike the polished relics of empires that left libraries and monuments, the spheres offer no inscriptions, no diagrams, just their mute perfection. In a way, their silence is their power. They resist easy categorization, stubbornly straddling the line between art and engineering, ritual and utility. Modern attempts to replicate them using ancient techniques have only deepened the respect for their creators. Each successful reconstruction a reminder that precision isn't the sole domain of industrial eras. The Diquis spheres stand as a testament to what human hands can achieve without blueprints or computers, guided only by patience, observation, and an unwavering pursuit of the perfect form. And in their flawless curves, they whisper a challenge across the centuries. Sometimes the past's greatest mysteries aren't about what we've lost, but what we've forgotten we're capable of. Imagine a world where steam power reshaped civilization not in the 18th century, but nearly 2,000 years earlier. That nearly happened in 1st century Alexandria, where the brilliant engineer Hero crafted a device so revolutionary it could have rewritten human history. Known as the eolipile, this ingenious invention wasn't just a curious trinket. It was a functional steam turbine, a spinning sphere powered by boiling water, its jets of vapor propelling it with surprising force. In essence, Hero had unlocked the principles of thermodynamics centuries before the scientific framework even existed. The potential was staggering. So why did this marvel of engineering end up as little more than a temple spectacle, forgotten until Renaissance scholars dusted off his manuscripts? Hero's design was deceptively simple yet breathtakingly advanced, a hollow metal sphere mounted on axles, filled with water and suspended over a fire. As steam built inside, it escaped through two bent nozzles, creating thrust that set the sphere spinning at dizzying speeds. Replicas have reached rotations of 1,500 revolutions per minute, comparable to some modern turbines. This wasn't just theoretical, it was practical mechanics in action. The Eolipile demonstrated principles that wouldn't be harnessed for industry until Watt and his contemporaries stumbled upon them in the 1700s. The gap between Hero's invention and its widespread application spans longer than the entire Renaissance. The question isn't whether Hero understood his device's significance. His writings suggest he did, but why society failed to capitalize on it. One explanation lies in the cultural context of the ancient world. Labor in Roman Egypt was cheap and abundant, with countless enslaved workers available to perform tasks machines might automate. Without economic pressure to innovate, the Eolipile remained a novelty, a demonstration of philosophical principles rather than a tool for productivity. Then there's the materials problem. Hero's original designs used bronze, a costly metal reserved for elites. Scaling up would have required metallurgical advances to produce affordable, high-pressure vessels, technology that simply didn't exist yet. But the most tantalizing theory revolves entirely around mindset. Ancient thinkers like Hero saw engineering as an extension of natural philosophy, a way to explore the wonders of the physical world rather than transform it. His Pneumatica, the manuscript detailing the Eolipile, is filled with similar devices: mechanical birds that sang when wind passed through them, self-trimming oil lamps, even a primitive vending machine. These weren't prototypes for mass production but intellectual exercises, meant to inspire awe and curiosity. The idea of applying such inventions to industry would have seemed alien in a world where technology served the gods and the elite, not the masses. What if things had been different? Had Hero's work been paired with the organizational drive of Rome or the mass production ethos of later eras, the Eolipile might have powered looms, mills, or even ships. The Industrial Revolution could have dawned in the time of gladiators, reshaping economies and societies millennia ahead of schedule. Instead, the device faded into obscurity, its potential untapped until modern engineers recognized it as the first step in a journey humanity took 1,800 years to complete. Hero's story isn't just about a machine, it's about the fragile interplay of innovation and opportunity. Brilliance alone isn't enough, it needs the right conditions to flourish. The Eolipile stands as a bittersweet reminder that progress isn't inevitable. Sometimes history's most transformative ideas lie dormant, waiting for the world to catch up. And that raises a haunting question: how many other breakthroughs hidden in ancient texts or artifacts still wait for their moment to change everything? In the dim glow of an Ottoman admiral's workshop in 1513, a map was born that would baffle historians for centuries. The Piri Reis map, named after its creator, is no ordinary nautical chart. Stretching from the coasts of Europe and Africa to the distant shores of what appears to be Antarctica, this parchment holds a detail so startling it defies the timeline of human exploration. An uncannily accurate outline of a continent buried under miles of ice, drawn 300 years before its official discovery. What makes this depiction so inexplicable is the precision of its coastline. The map shows Antarctica's Queen Maud Land with near-modern accuracy, including bays and mountain ranges now concealed beneath millennia of glacial buildup. Even more perplexing, the continent is rendered without its ice cap, as if the cartographer had access to geographic knowledge from an era when Antarctica was last ice-free, a period dating back at least 6,000 years. How could a 16th century navigator, armed with nothing but compasses and celestial navigation, chart a landmass humanity wouldn't officially encounter until 1820? Mainstream scholars offer a more grounded explanation. The map might be a composite of earlier sources, blending genuine exploration with speculative geography. Piri Reis himself noted on the margins that he'd compiled the chart from 20 older maps, some dating back to the Library of Alexandria. Could fragments of ancient knowledge, perhaps from Phoenician sailors or even seafaring civilizations lost to history, have survived long enough to inform his work? The map's inclusion of mythical creatures and legendary islands suggests artistic license, but its eerie accuracy in certain regions hints at something more deliberate. Then there's the controversy over whether the landmass is Antarctica at all. Some argue it's a distorted representation of South America, a continent Europeans had only recently encountered. The map's orientation and scale are undeniably skewed, a common issue in early cartography. Yet the coastal contours align suspiciously well with modern underwater surveys of Antarctica's bedrock, information inaccessible without sonar technology. If this is mere coincidence, it's one of history's most unnerving. The debate takes a speculative turn when you consider who might have originally charted these lands. Ancient cultures like the Minoans or Harappans were known for their seafaring prowess, but no records suggest they ventured so far south. More fringe theories propose intervention from advanced, now vanished civilizations, or even extraterrestrial influence, though these ideas lack concrete evidence. What's undeniable is that the map's creator had access to some source of refined geographic data, whether inherited, imagined, or illicitly borrowed. Modern technology has only deepened the enigma. When overlaid with satellite imagery, the map's most accurate sections align with regions of Antarctica that would have been coastal before the Ice Age. This raises a haunting possibility. Could Piri Reis have stumbled upon a cartographic relic from a pre-glacial epoch preserved in some forgotten archive? Or is this simply a case of selective interpretation, where we project meaning onto an old map's ambiguities? The Piri Reis map resists easy answers, standing as a Rorschach test for how we view the past. To some, it's proof of forgotten voyages and lost knowledge. To others, it's a brilliant but flawed artifact of its time. Either way, it challenges us to reconsider what ancient explorers might have known, and how much of their wisdom slipped through the cracks of history. In its faded ink and contested lines lies a reminder: the past is never as simple as we'd like it to be. Long before the first seismographs clicked to life in modern labs, ancient Chinese scholars had already mastered the art of listening to the Earth's whispers. Among their most astonishing inventions were seismic detectors so sophisticated they could pinpoint distant quakes with eerie accuracy, centuries before Western science even acknowledged earthquakes as natural phenomena. The most famous of these devices, created by the brilliant polymath Zhang Heng in the 2nd century, wasn't just functional, it was a work of art. His bronze earthquake weather vane, shaped like an ornate urn adorned with 8 dragon heads, didn't merely sense tremors, it announced them with theatrical precision. Each dragon clutched a bronze ball in its jaws, poised above the open mouth of a corresponding toad figurine. Hidden inside the vessel, an ingeniously balanced pendulum remained still under normal conditions. But when seismic waves rippled through the ground, even from quakes hundreds of miles away, the pendulum would sway, tripping a mechanism that released a single ball. The clatter of metal against bronze signaled danger, while the specific dragon that dropped its ball pointed toward the quake's epicenter. Historical records claim one such device once detected an earthquake in Gansu province, while the capital city of Luoyang felt nothing. A feat that baffled officials until messengers arrived days later confirming the disaster. Zhang Heng's design wasn't just clever, it was rooted in profound observational science. Modern engineers who have reconstructed his device found it could detect quakes as low as magnitude 4, rivaling some early 20th century seismographs. The 8 dragons aligned with cardinal and intercardinal directions, forming a crude but effective coordinate system. This wasn't guesswork, it was calibrated physics, leveraging principles we now know govern seismic wave propagation. The genius lay in its simplicity: no electricity, no gears, just finely tuned mechanics responding to forces invisible to human senses. But Zhang Heng wasn't alone in this pursuit. Across China, other seismic warning systems flourished as early as the Zhou dynasty. Imperial palaces sometimes featured toppling column detectors, freestanding pillars designed to fall in the direction of incoming tremors. Some accounts describe elaborate systems of balanced bowls filled with mercury, where quakes would spill the liquid into channels that triggered alarms. The common thread, an understanding that earthquakes weren't celestial punishments but measurable events, an empirical mindset that wouldn't take hold in Europe until the Enlightenment. What's most striking about these ancient detectors isn't just their accuracy, but how they shaped disaster response. In a sprawling empire where timely information could mean the difference between survival and catastrophe, early warnings allowed officials to dispatch aid, fortify buildings, or evacuate regions before aftershocks struck. The detectors became symbols of imperial benevolence, proof that the emperor's mandate extended even to controlling nature's wrath. Yet for all their sophistication, these technologies eventually vanished, not because they failed, but because the knowledge to maintain them grew scarce. The intricate craftsmanship required to tune the pendulum mechanisms or cast the dragon sensors became lost arts. By the Ming dynasty, Zhang Heng's design survived only in texts, its workings misunderstood until modern reconstruction. This raises a sobering question: how many other breakthroughs have slipped through history's cracks, not for lack of brilliance but for lack of heirs to carry the torch? Today, as cities deploy AI-powered seismic networks, it's worth remembering these ancient precursors. They stand as reminders that innovation isn't always about creating something new. Sometimes it's about rediscovering what our ancestors already knew. The difference between a dragon dropping a ball and a smartphone alert is one of mechanism, not intent. Both whisper the same urgent truth: the earth moves beneath us, and those who listen closest survive best. Zhang Heng's greatest legacy isn't just a machine, it's the radical idea that nature speaks to those patient enough to decipher its language. Battered by the North Atlantic's merciless swells, Viking ships still found their way across thousands of miles of open ocean without compasses, without charts, often under skies so overcast that even the sun vanished for days. How, among the scattered clues left behind in Norse settlements, one artifact stands out as a potential key to their legendary navigation: the Uunartoq Disc. Discovered in a medieval Greenlandic convent, this wooden fragment, roughly the size of a saucer, is etched with precisely carved notches and a central gnomon slot. At first glance, it resembles a simple sundial, but reconstructions reveal something far more ingenious: a sun compass capable of guiding longships through the most treacherous stretches of the Atlantic. What makes the Uunartoq Disc so remarkable is its adaptability. Unlike static sundials fixed to specific latitudes, this device could be adjusted mid-journey. Researchers who have studied replicas propose that navigators slid the gnomon, the shadow-casting pin, along its central groove to compensate for the sun's shifting angle as they sailed north or south. The curved markings along the edges likely corresponded to seasonal sun paths, allowing sailors to correct their course even as the solstices changed the sun's arc. But the true stroke of genius lay in its pairing with another Norse tool, the elusive sunstone. Mentioned in sagas but long dismissed as myth, these crystals, possibly Iceland spar, a form of calcite, could polarize sunlight, revealing the sun's position through dense cloud cover or even after sunset. When held toward the sky, the stone's unique optical properties would create twin beams of light, aligning in the sun's direction regardless of visibility. Combine this with the Uunartoq Disc's calibrated shadows, and suddenly, the Vikings had a fail-safe navigation system, one that functioned under conditions that would have left other cultures hopelessly adrift. The implications are staggering. While medieval Europe clung to coastal routes, terrified of losing sight of land, Norse explorers were routinely crossing the North Atlantic, reaching Newfoundland, perhaps even farther. The disc's precision hints at a nuanced understanding of celestial mechanics that rivaled contemporaneous Arab and Chinese navigational science. Some scholars argue the notches align with specific latitudes, suggesting the Vikings may have developed standardized routes, memorizing gnomon positions for voyages between Iceland, Greenland, and Vinland. Yet mysteries remain. Only one intact disc has ever been found, raising questions about how widespread this technology truly was. Were they mass-produced tools carried by every longship or specialized instruments wielded by elite navigators? And how did the Vikings account for the sun's unpredictable behavior near the Arctic Circle, where it might not set for months? Some theorists propose they supplemented the disk with star observations or wave patterns, creating a mental map no physical artifact could capture. Modern experiments have put the Uunartoq Disc to the test. Using replicas under varying conditions, navigators have successfully plotted courses within 2 degrees of accuracy, enough to strike Greenland from Norway. But these trials also reveal the system's fragility. A misaligned gnomon or misread sunstone could spell disaster, explaining why later Viking voyages grew rarer as climate cooling increased cloud cover. The margin for error was razor-thin, demanding not just tools but generations of hard-won expertise. Perhaps the disk's greatest lesson isn't about technology, but about the Vikings themselves. This wasn't just a culture of raiders, it was a society of meticulous scientists, their survival hinging on observations passed down through poetry and oral tradition. The Uunartoq Disc, worn smooth by hands long turned to dust, embodies their fearless curiosity. It's a relic of the only people who looked at the trackless Atlantic and saw not a barrier but a highway, and who dared to chart it with nothing but wood, crystal, and the endless ingenuity of the human mind. High in the remote Bayan Karaula Mountains bordering China and Tibet, a discovery in 1938 would ignite one of archaeology's most enduring controversies and one of its most hotly contested hoaxes. According to the story, a team led by Chinese archaeologist Kai Pu-te stumbled upon a series of caves containing rows of strange burials, skeletons no taller than 4 feet with oversized skulls, interred alongside hundreds of stone discs, each about 12 inches in diameter with a hole in the center. But the real shock came when someone examined the discs under magnification. Their surfaces were covered in minuscule grooves, spiraling out from the center in a pattern some swore resembled binary code, a language of ones and zeros millennia before computers existed. These were the Dropa stones, artifacts that, if genuine, would rewrite human history. Proponents of the stone's authenticity spun a tale ripped straight from science fiction. They claimed Russian researchers who analyzed the discs in the 1960s found the grooves formed a readable script, telling the story of an alien spacecraft crashing in the mountains 12,000 years ago. The survivors, the slender, large-headed Dropa people, allegedly carved their plight into the stones before integrating with local tribes. Some even pointed to modern DNA tests on the area's nomadic Ham people, who averaged just over 4 feet tall, as evidence of extraterrestrial ancestry. It's a narrative that's fueled books, documentaries, and conspiracy theories for decades. But mainstream archaeology dismisses the entire saga as an elaborate fabrication. The original expedition led by Kai Pu-te, no records of it exist in Chinese academic archives. The supposed Russian translations, no credited researchers or peer-reviewed papers back the claims. Even the discs themselves have vanished. No museum or university has ever displayed them, and the handful of blurry photographs in circulation could easily depict ordinary discs, common Neolithic artifacts used in rituals. The binary code, grooves, natural weathering patterns, or deliberate carvings for decorative or ceremonial purposes, nothing more. What makes the Dropa stones so fascinating isn't their legitimacy, it's their staying power. Despite the lack of evidence, the story persists, recycled endlessly in fringe circles. It taps into a deeper human desire, the longing for proof that we're not alone, that our ancestors encountered something extraordinary. The stones also expose how easily misinformation spreads when facts are scarce. In the absence of physical artifacts to debunk, the legend grows unchecked, morphing with each retelling. Yet buried beneath the myth is a kernel of real intrigue. The Bayan Karaula region does have a history of unique burial practices, and the Ham people's distinct physiology is an anthropological curiosity. These facts, stripped of alien embellishments, are compelling enough without invented drama. The Dropa stones serve as a cautionary tale, not just about gullibility, but about how easily genuine mysteries can be overshadowed by sensational fiction. In the end, the stone's legacy isn't about ancient aliens or binary code. It's about the stories we tell to fill the gaps in our understanding and the fine line between wonder and credulity. They remind us that while the past is full of unexplained phenomena, not every mystery needs an otherworldly explanation. Sometimes the truth, even when ordinary, is strange enough. In the dusty ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, one of the great cities of the ancient Indus Valley, a mystery lingers that has fueled speculation for decades. Strewn across its streets and buildings are strange, glassy stones fused and melted as if subjected to extreme heat. For some, these shards are smoking gun evidence of an event straight out of science fiction. An ancient nuclear explosion, a cataclysm so devastating it turned solid structures into molten slag. The theory paints a chilling picture, a thriving metropolis obliterated by technology lost to time, its people reduced to skeletons with radiation levels allegedly higher than normal. But before we entertain doomsday scenarios, let's unravel what science and archaeology really tell us about these enigmatic ruins. The vitrified stone's glassy patches formed when silica-rich materials melt and cool rapidly are undeniably real. But attributing them to nuclear detonations overlooks simpler explanations. Intense fires, whether from warfare, industrial accidents, or even lightning strikes, can generate enough heat to vitrify stone. Mohenjo-Daro was a bustling urban center with densely packed brick buildings and likely ample stored fuels like oils or grains. A massive conflagration, perhaps sparked during an invasion, could easily have created localized temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius, hot enough to mimic the effects some associate with atomic blasts. Then there's the blackened stones theory, often cited as evidence of sudden extreme heat. These darkened bricks, however, align with patterns seen in other ancient cities destroyed by conventional fire. The Indus Valley was no stranger to conflict. Evidence of violent upheaval exists elsewhere in the archaeological record. If attackers torched granaries or oil reserves, the resulting inferno would explain the scorch marks without invoking futuristic weaponry. Radiation claims, meanwhile, crumble under scrutiny. Initial reports of high radiation levels near skeletons have never been substantiated by peer-reviewed studies. Normal background radiation varies widely due to geology, and no isotopic evidence like cesium-137, a telltale marker of nuclear events, has ever been found. Even the infamous skeletons in the street narrative, often dramatized as instant victims of a blast, fits more plausibly with victims of collapse or combat, their remains preserved by the same arid climate that helped conserve the city's structures. But why does the nuclear theory persist? Partly because Mohenjo-Daro's decline remains shrouded in mystery. Unlike Pompeii, frozen in time by a single disaster, this city's abandonment was gradual, likely tied to ecological shifts like the drying of the Saraswati River. When definitive answers are elusive, imagination rushes in. The vitrified stones became a canvas for projecting modern fears, a Cold War-era fascination with apocalypse grafted onto the ancient past. The real story of Mohenjo-Daro is no less compelling. This was a meticulously planned city with advanced drainage systems, standardized bricks, and a level of urban sophistication unmatched in its time. Its melted stones are likely scars from a more mundane tragedy, war, fire, or even a kiln gone awry, not evidence of vanished superweapons. Yet the persistence of the nuclear myth speaks volumes about how we interpret the past. We're drawn to narratives that bridge the familiar and the fantastical, even when the truth is simpler and in many ways more human. What lingers in Mohenjo-Daro's ruins isn't proof of ancient atomic warfare, but a testament to how easily the line between fact and legend can blur. The same curiosity that spawns wild theories also drives genuine discovery, pushing us to look deeper, question harder, and separate the sparks of history from the smoke of speculation. And in that balance, perhaps, lies the real lesson of these glassy stones, not about the past's hidden technologies, but about our own relentless desire to make sense of its mysteries. High in the Andes, where the air thins and the horizon stretches endlessly, stands a portal carved from a single block of stone, the Sun Gate of Tiwanaku. This 10-ton monolith, intricately etched with celestial figures and geometric patterns, isn't just a relic of a lost civilization. It's a puzzle that has captivated scholars and mystics alike. At first glance, the gate's central figure, a deity with radiating headdress and tear-streaked face, dominates the scene. But look closer, and the surrounding carvings reveal a sophistication that defies its ancient origins. Precise alignments, repetitive glyphs, and a symmetry so exact it suggests far more than decorative artistry. Could this be the blueprint of a calendar so advanced it rivaled the astronomical knowledge of the Renaissance? Archaeologists studying the gate's engravings have identified what appear to be markers for solstices and equinoxes, with specific figures positioned to align with the sun's rays during key agricultural cycles. The Tiwanaku people, who thrived over 1,000 years ago in what's now Bolivia, depended on pinpointing seasonal shifts to cultivate crops in the harsh Andean climate. The gate's carvings may have functioned as a celestial almanac, its shadows and light acting like a stone-bound sundial. On the winter solstice, sunlight strikes the central deity's headdress at dawn, splitting into beams that illuminate adjacent carvings linked to planting rituals. Such precision implies a deep understanding of Earth's tilt and orbital patterns, knowledge typically attributed to later civilizations. But the gate's mysteries don't end with astronomy. Indigenous Aymara legends speak of it as a stargate, a portal used by gods to traverse between worlds. Some carvings depict humanoid figures with elongated skulls and what look like handheld devices, fueling speculation about encounters with advanced beings. These stories, passed down orally for generations, describe the gate humming when touched by moonlight or vibrating during certain planetary alignments. While mainstream researchers dismiss such accounts as myth, they raise a provocative question. Why would a farming culture invest such effort into a structure whose primary purpose wasn't practical? Modern technology has only deepened the enigma. Laser scans reveal microscopic tool marks suggesting the gate was shaped with implements far harder than the local andesite stone, tools unaccounted for in the archaeological record. Even more baffling is the gate's original location. It once stood atop a pyramid-like structure called the Kalasasaya, an arena with walls aligned to celestial events with near-obsessive precision. The entire complex functions like a machine, its components working in concert to track time, predict eclipses, and perhaps even channel rituals tied to the cosmos. Yet the gate's true purpose may lie somewhere between science and spirituality. For the Tiwanaku, time wasn't linear but cyclical, woven into the fabric of existence. The gate's carvings could be a meditation on this philosophy, merging astronomy with metaphysics. Its calendar might not just mark days but sacred moments, bridging the earthly and the divine. Whether observatory, temple, or something stranger, the Sun Gate refuses to be categorized, a silent guardian of secrets that challenge our assumptions about the past. And as the high-altitude winds whistle through its weathered carvings, it seems to whisper a timeless truth. Some ancient machines weren't built to be understood, but to remind us how much we've yet to learn. Stretching across 450 square miles of Peru's arid plateau, The Nazca lines have long been dismissed as mere ceremonial doodles, giant sand etchings left behind by a culture obsessed with the divine. But what if these colossal geoglyphs were never just art? What if they were components of something far more ambitious, an ancient machine engineered to manipulate the very land itself? Look beyond the familiar hummingbirds and spiders, and you'll find a network of lines, spirals, and trapezoids so precisely aligned, they hint at a purpose beyond ritual. Some researchers now argue these formations weren't meant to be seen from the ground at all, but rather to interact with forces beneath it. The most compelling theory reimagines the Nazca lines as a vast hydraulic system, a desert-spanning mechanism designed to channel and conserve water in one of the driest places on Earth. Satellite imagery reveals something astonishing. Many of the straight-line geoglyphs align perfectly with underground aquifers, their trapezoidal plazas positioned at the endpoints of natural water flows. The famous ray centers, radiating lines resembling sunbursts, often sit atop geological faults where water would surface during seasonal tremors. Even the spirals, once thought to be decorative, may have served as wind tunnels, using the region's fierce gusts to draw moisture from deep wells up to the surface. It's as if the entire plateau was transformed into a passive irrigation machine, its grooves and shapes functioning like valves and conduits in a system invisible to the naked eye. Yet the water theory only scratches the surface. Archaeoastronomers point to celestial alignments so precise they defy coincidence. The massive astronaut figure, etched into a hillside, gazes directly toward the spot where the Pleiades cluster rises during the December solstice, a critical marker for planting in the ancient Andes. Other glyphs mirror constellations as they appeared 2,000 years ago, their positions calibrated to predict seasonal floods. The straight lines, often dismissed as processional paths, might have functioned as sighting tools, their angles tracking the sun's movement to mark key agricultural dates. Imagine the entire desert as a colossal calendar, its lines acting like Stone Age GPS coordinates for celestial events. What makes these theories so provocative isn't just the scale of the engineering, it's the implication that the Nazca people viewed their landscape as a living system to be harnessed, not just inhabited. Modern experiments have shown that the shallow trenches of the geoglyphs, though only inches deep, create microclimates where condensation gathers overnight, sustaining hardy crops. The darker stones removed to create the lines absorb heat by day, generating air currents that may have prevented erosion or even guided rainfall. This wasn't just art, it was ecological architecture on a staggering scale. Skeptics, of course, demand harder evidence. Without written records, the Nazca's intentions remain speculative. But consider this, the same culture that crafted these lines also built underground aqueducts called puquios, some still functional today, using spiral stone ramps to access groundwater. If they could engineer subterranean water systems, why not surface ones? The lines may have been the visible component of a technology that blended hydrology, astronomy, and spirituality, a machine not of gears and levers but of earth and sky. The Nazca lines challenge us to rethink what an ancient machine can be. They weren't static drawings but dynamic interfaces, a dialogue between humans and their environment written in the language of geometry and motion. Whether guiding water, tracking stars, or both, they stand as a testament to a civilization that didn't just survive the desert, they engineered it. And in their silent, sprawling code lies a question. How many other ancient landscapes have we misunderstood, mistaking ingenuity for ornament? Long before Charles Goodyear patented vulcanization in the 19th century, the Olmec civilization of ancient Mesoamerica had already mastered the art of transforming sticky tree sap into durable, bouncy rubber, and they weren't just making toys. This breakthrough wasn't accidental. It was the result of a sophisticated chemical process that turned raw latex into a versatile material, fueling everything from sacred sporting events to waterproof tools. The Olmecs, flourishing as early as 1600 years before the Common Era, didn't just stumble upon rubber, they engineered it with precision that rivals modern methods. At the heart of their innovation was the sap of the Castilla elastica tree, a resource abundant in the steamy lowlands of what's now Mexico. But raw latex is fragile, melting in heat, and brittle in cold, useless for practical applications. The Olmec solution, a recipe as simple as it was brilliant, mixed the sap with juice from the morning glory vine, specifically Ipomoea alba. Modern chemists analyzing this combination discovered something astonishing. The vine's sulfur-rich compounds acted as a natural vulcanizing agent, creating cross-links between latex polymers that made the rubber elastic and weather-resistant. This wasn't just mixing, it was molecular manipulation, a process that wouldn't be replicated in labs until the industrial era. The most iconic use of this rubber was in the colossal ball games central to Olmec ritual life. Imagine solid rubber spheres, some weighing up to 8 pounds, hurtling through stone courts at dizzying speeds. These weren't playground objects, they were sacred instruments, their bounce and sound woven into ceremonies that blended sport, religion, and even cosmology. The games were so violent, so laden with symbolic sacrifice, that surviving depictions show players wearing thick protective gear, another potential application of their rubber technology. But the material's utility didn't stop there. Archaeological evidence suggests the Olmecs may have waterproof textiles, tools, and even footwear with rubber coatings, creating an early form of industrial sealing. Imagine farmers wading through flooded fields in rubber-treated sandals, or hunters using waterproofed bags to protect precious goods, innovations that would have given them a tangible edge in their environment. Some researchers speculate they even experimented with rubberized adhesives, using the sticky yet durable material to haft tools or construct ceremonial objects. What's most striking is the scale of their production. Excavations at El Manotti, a swampy Olmec site, revealed hundreds of rubber balls deliberately deposited as offerings, suggesting mass production and deep cultural significance. This wasn't cottage industry, it was systematic knowledge passed down through generations with meticulous care. The Olmecs didn't just invent rubber, they industrialized it, embedding it in the fabric of their society centuries before Rome or Athens rose to prominence. Yet the mystery lingers. How did they discover this process? Morning glory isn't an obvious pairing with latex. It's not a food source or common medicine. Was it trial and error, or did they possess a sophisticated understanding of organic chemistry that's since been lost? The absence of written records leaves us guessing, but the results speak for themselves. While Goodyear's vulcanization relied on heated sulfur, the Olmec method worked at room temperature, an eco-friendly alternative modern scientists are only now beginning to fully appreciate. The legacy of Olmec rubber stretches far beyond their collapse. Their techniques spread across Mesoamerica, influencing Maya and Aztec technologies. When Spanish conquistadors first witnessed the bouncing balls of the Aztec Ullamalistli game, they were baffled. Nothing in Europe compared to it. Today, as we grapple with synthetic materials and environmental costs, the Olmec's ancient innovation offers a haunting lesson. Sometimes, the most advanced solutions aren't new at all, just waiting in the past for us to recognize their brilliance. Their rubber wasn't just a material, it was a revolution, one that still echoes in every stretch and bounce of the modern world. The legend sounds like something ripped from a fantasy epic, an elderly inventor standing atop the walls of Syracuse, directing a massive array of polished bronze mirrors to set enemy warships ablaze with nothing but concentrated sunlight. According to ancient accounts, this was the death ray of Archimedes, a weapon so advanced for its time that it straddled the line between genius and myth. The story goes that during the Roman siege of Syracuse in 212 years before the Common Era, the brilliant Greek mathematician and engineer devised this optical weapon to defend his city. As the Roman fleet approached, sunlight reflected off the mirrors converged into a searing beam, igniting hulls and sails, turning the sea itself into a battlefield of fire. But did this dazzling feat of ancient engineering actually happen? Or is it just another tale amplified by centuries of retelling? Modern attempts to test the death ray's feasibility have produced wildly contradictory results, fueling debates among historians, engineers, and physicists. In 2005, a team from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology set up an experiment using 127 square-foot mirrors arranged in a curved formation. Targeting a wooden replica of a Roman ship from about 150 feet away, roughly the distance between Syracuse's walls and the harbor, they managed to create smoldering patches on the hull, but only after holding the beam steady on a single spot for over 10 minutes under ideal conditions. The experiment suggested the concept was plausible, but only barely. The real-world variables, cloud cover, ship movements, the difficulty of coordinating dozens of mirrors in unison, made the death ray seem more like a theatrical deterrent than a practical weapon. Yet another attempt by the television show Mythbusters in 2006 concluded the opposite. Despite multiple configurations, their scaled-down version failed to produce enough sustained heat to ignite even treated flammable materials. They declared the death ray busted, arguing that the energy dispersion of sunlight over distance, combined with the imperfect reflectivity of bronze mirrors, made the feat impossible with ancient technology. However, critics of these replications point out a critical flaw. Both tests assumed the mirrors were flat. Historical accounts describe burning mirrors, a term that could refer to parabolic reflectors, shaped surfaces capable of focusing light far more intensely. A single large parabolic mirror, or a series of smaller ones angled precisely, might have achieved the necessary heat concentration to ignite pitch-coated sails in seconds, not minutes. The debate hinges on more than just optics. Skeptics highlight the absence of contemporaneous records mentioning the death ray. The earliest detailed account comes from the historian Galen, writing centuries after Archimedes' death. Even then, he describes the mirrors as one of many defensive innovations, not a decisive weapon. Roman chroniclers who documented the siege in detail make no mention of ships burning under mysterious circumstances. If the death ray had been as devastating as later legends claim, wouldn't it have left a more indelible mark on historical records? Then there's the question of logistics. Syracuse's harbor was vast, and Roman ships were mobile targets. Coordinating enough mirrors to track and ignite multiple vessels simultaneously would have required unprecedented precision, especially amid the chaos of battle. Archimedes, renowned for his siege engines and pulley systems, certainly had the ingenuity to devise such a weapon, but did he have the resources? Polishing bronze to a high enough reflectivity, crafting parabolic curves without modern tools, and training operators to angle the mirrors in real time would have stretched the limits of 3rd century technology. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between myth and reality. The death ray might not have been a single, monolithic weapon, but a combination of tactics designed to disorient and intimidate. Accounts of the siege describe other terrifying inventions attributed to Archimedes: massive cranes that lifted ships out of the water before dropping them, claw-like devices that shattered hulls, even rumors of steam cannons. The mirrors could have been one component of a psychological warfare strategy, their glinting surfaces creating blinding reflections to confuse crews, while more conventional fires were set using arrows or catapults. What makes the death ray legend endure isn't just its spectacle, it's the tantalizing possibility that Archimedes, a man centuries ahead of his time, might have glimpsed principles we now take for granted. The same geometric intuition that led him to calculate pi and devise early calculus could have recognized the potential of focused light as a weapon. In the end, whether the death ray was fact, exaggeration, or pure myth matters less than what it represents. Humanity's relentless drive to harness the forces of nature, even when those forces seem as intangible as sunlight. The mirrors of Syracuse remind us that the line between impossible and ingenious is often just a matter of perspective, and sometimes all it takes is the right angle to set the world on fire. From the celestial tracking gears of the Antikythera Mechanism to the rubber revolution of the Olmecs, these 25 ancient machines defy the neat timelines of human progress. Each artifact whispers a haunting question: were our ancestors far more advanced than we've ever imagined, or do we keep seeing reflections of our own modern world in the fragments they left behind? The truth, as always, lies somewhere in the shadows between. Take the Saqqara Bird's aerodynamic curves or the Quimbaya artifact's uncanny resemblance to jets. Are these proof of forgotten flight, or simply our brains imposing familiar shapes on ancient artistry? The Baghdad batteries could be evidence of prehistoric electroplating, or just sacred vessels misread through the lens of our electrified era. Even the Dendera carvings, with their bulb-like forms, straddle the line between symbolic ritual and speculative technology. These aren't just historical puzzles, they're mirrors reflecting our own biases, our hunger for connection across millennia, yet some mysteries resist easy dismissal. Zhang Heng's seismoscope detected earthquakes with precision unmatched for 1,500 years. The precision-cut Dickweiss spheres demonstrate geometric mastery without modern tools. And the Uunartoq Disc reveals Viking navigators crossing oceans using math we'd later rediscover. These weren't accidents, they're fingerprints of genius, reminders that innovation isn't always linear. Civilizations rise, fall, and sometimes leave behind clues too advanced for their era, only to be misunderstood until technology catches up. So were these machines products of lost civilizations, extraterrestrial hints, or simply our own wishful thinking? The answer might be all three. History isn't a single thread but a tangled web of brilliance, coincidence, and the stories we tell to make sense of the gaps. What matters isn't just solving these enigmas, it's the thrill of the hunt, the humility of realizing how much we still don't know. Now it's your turn. Which of these ancient machines left you awestruck? Do you believe the Dropa stones encoded alien messages, or was Hero's steam turbine the real mist revolution? Drop your theories in the comments, and if you're craving more mysteries that bend history, hit subscribe. The past isn't done surprising us yet.